Welcome back to Bluegrass on this beautiful fall day. A little bit gray, a little bit windy, but I've got a lot of nice dogs, and when I have a lot of nice dogs, I'm happy. All right, today we are talking about Tucker, the Greater Swiss Mountain Dog, and kind of answering the question as to whether or not a Greater Swiss Mountain Dog is right for you and your family, okay? Now, from my perspective, Greater Swiss Mountain Dogs are pretty awesome. I've owned 2 of them, and I've trained, I don't know, over the years. I went in a few year period where I never went a month without having one here for training. This was kind of YouTube stage of my career. And, I like them, but I kind of started moving towards doing some more Labrador and Malinois related stuff. And so these guys never made it onto my channel just because I kind of got out of that fad before I hit YouTube. I really like them. I mean, they're really neat. They're right at the top of my big square-headed dog liking list, right? Okay, and what I really like about them is temperament-wise, they kind of remind me of, say, a showbred or English-style Labrador Retriever. It's like kind of somewhere between that and maybe a big Mastiff, right? Okay, so think about them like you're buying a big, pretty, goofy puppy that also can serve as a little bit of a guard dog. Now, when I say a little bit of a guard dog, remember from my other videos, what I say makes a good guard dog. We want to maximize the deterrence value of the dog, but minimize the liability. And that's really where these dogs excel, okay? These dogs get really big and they're quick to do what's called alert barking. In other words, if they see something kind of in the environment that doesn't belong there, they'll swell up. I call it the Swissy shuffle, and they'll boof, 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 boof. They'll bluff charge things, and they're kind of intimidating if you don't know much about the breed, right? But you have very little liability in that they're really not kind of prone to actual conflict, you know? It's kind of like more like, woo, 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 look how big I am. Hey mom, come help, right? And so I like them for that. I also like them for the fact that, like, I mean, they're just fun to have around. When you go out with them, everybody loves them. Kids love them. They love kids. I mean, they're pretty awesome dogs. Now, the pitch on the dogs is that they were a kind of a general purpose farm dog in Switzerland. And they were cattle drovers and cart pullers and stuff like that. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't know if any of that's true. You know, I've never been to Switzerland. I most certainly don't, I'm not a Swiss historian. I can tell you from my perspective that these guys ain't much into working, right? Okay, they're pretty much dogs of leisure. They do great. This dog lives on a big horse farm, and he's going to do great. But his working is going to kind of consist of riding around in a nice car and checking on horses and getting loved on, okay? And I think that's where they excel. One of the things I really like about them is when you first get them out in the morning and go to doing stuff with them, they have a lot of energy. They're super happy to see you. Like every morning when you wake up, they're like, it's like a whole new day to them. Come on, buddy. It's like a whole new day. They get up and they're like, oh my gosh, it's a new day. We're going to do things. We're going to conquer a lot of challenges. We're going to get out and do something really fun, right? But you take them on a nice walk, and then they're like, you know what? I think we can get to that stuff tomorrow. And so they really fit a suburban lifestyle pretty well, even though they're a big dog. Where they excel, though, is if you can have them on a farm. And I'm going to show you that. Instead of talking a lot here on the Exercise Small Challenges course, we're just going to go out back and we're going to take a walk and we're going to build a fire. And I'm just going to let you watch this dog kind of as he roams around and plays with the other dogs. And you'll get a pretty good idea of whether or not a Greater Swiss Mountain Dog is right for you. Okay, so you guys know my favorite kind of learning is learning by doing, so we're just going to take a walk. And as we take a walk, I want you to look at Tucker and compare him to the other dogs, right? Okay, so when we start off, all the dogs are kind of doing the same things. And then if you watch closely, you can see the dogs kind of start to wind down at different points along the walk. It might start raining on us. We're going to try to walk around, do a little campfire safety. But if it rains, well, then that's a good thing too, because the only way to get used to doing stuff in the rain is to do stuff in the rain. Come on, dogs. Now, every so often, you're gonna see Tucker come over here, and I'm gonna give him a treat for checking in. Same thing with these labs. And that's why I was saying that Greater Swiss Mountain Dogs, they kind of fit into my system well, because they, they're kind of their, general traits and tendencies are somewhat similar to an English-style Labrador Retriever, Very nice. one of the things that, come on over here, cameraman, you see him get in here? One of the things that I always really like about the Swissies is that they get big pretty quickly, but they mature slowly. And if we're completely honest, even an adult Swissy is somewhat puppy-like. They're always a little bit on the impetuous side and inquisitive side, and you can take them out on an adventure, you know, and whereas like some breeds of dogs, they're very pattern cognizant, and you take them on the same adventure 3 or 4 times and they're not quite as excited about it. You know, it's kind of waning excitement over the course of adventures. These Swissies, I can take them for the same walk almost every day of their life and they get just as excited every day. So kind of looks like a puppy, acts like a puppy. That's generally a great rule to follow when you're looking at different dog breeds. You know, dog breeds kind of act like they look. Very nice. Come on, dogs. You see a lot of exuberance from Tucker the first part of the walk. He'll be zigging, zagging, going off, you know. And then after we get a little bit of that energy out of him, what you're going to see is that he just kind of starts to tag along. A lot of times in my videos, like there's something to be learned just from watching the video without even any sound on it. You can just go back through the videos where I have lots of dogs out and watch their movement patterns and then ask yourself, that movement pattern that I'm seeing the dog engage in Stonnie's video where the dog's free to do whatever they want, like how does that translate to my lifestyle? You know, you see how these dogs are zigging and zagging and moving. They're not going anywhere. They're not running off. I'm not worried about losing them, right? But imagine like, if you're a dog and you have this much inquisitiveness, right, you have this much energy to spend and your whole life is spent within a 6-foot radius of your owner because you're on the leash all the time. And you know, when you start thinking like that, when you start developing empathy for the dog that you have, then like understanding the root causes of misbehavior becomes a lot easier. And then once you understand the root causes of misbehavior, then you can do a lot better job of addressing misbehavior, getting the dogs on the right track. And even more importantly, like if you do your research up front, you can understand how genetics and overall happiness with a dog are tied together. You know, I say a lot in the dog training videos is that happiness comes from met expectations. Come on, Tucker. But met expectations have to start off with the good, solid information and an objective overview of your actual life, not the life that you feel like you might have if you know, once you get the dog. Come on, dude, you can do it. Very nice. Now, the little dog running with Tucker there, his best buddy is Oscar, the English Cocker, but this little dog running right here, this is Annie. Oh my gosh. And now Annie is, she's 8 weeks old maybe today, I think. Oh, and she's a field bred dog. She's our new dog. And look how she runs already. Already at 8 weeks old, she's just out here running with these big boys. Her heart's beating fast. She's getting in good shape, you know. And she can kind of at 8 weeks old motor around with Tucker and like pretty much keep up with them. Hey, dogs! And then here comes Oscar. And Tucker's is bringing up the rear. So what you're going to notice with this bigger, blockier dog here is that you start losing him as we walk. Like he starts coming from behind a little bit more often because he keeps going back there and laying down like, hey, have we walked far enough? You know, so we're going to try to kind of walk over here to my campfire spot and then we'll kind of give him a break. Very good dogs. You're a very good dog. Somewhere around here is Sherlock. Sherlock, come here, dude. Oh my gosh. Now let me turn Sherlock around. And you can watch Sherlock because you can already see that fatigue meter, and it's a pretty cool day. You can already see that fatigue meter starting to hang out, okay? Same thing with Caleb. Let's turn Caleb around. The bigger, the blockier the dog, the better suited they are for cold weather, then the quicker they're gonna tire unless it's sub-zero temperatures. Very nice. Here's Tucker again. You'll notice that sometimes Tucker will kind of stop and he'll post up and he'll start looking around, okay? That gets back to the idea where I think they make kind of a good general purpose guard dog in a low crime environment is because they're pretty aware of their environment, and if anything's even a little bit strange, then they'll notice it, they'll puff up a little bit and they'll start burr, 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 burr. And that lets you know. That lets you know that you need to start looking around and seeing if there's some evildoers in play. Very nice. But they're never going to run out and grab a hold of somebody or attack somebody. If like say he started barking and I didn't pay attention, I wouldn't have to worry about Tucker like taking it on himself to run out and like defend the property. It's kind of like he's going to go, brr, 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 brr. You better not come on our property. Hey Stonnie, come get him. And then like if I don't come get him, he's like, well, I'll go over here, see if I can get Stonnie's attention again, you know. Very nice dogs. Come on, come on. Come on, big boy. Come on, you can do it. You're the big boy. It's a very good dog. When you touch these dogs, this is one of the reasons I'm kind of skeptical about how hard these dogs used to work. You know, I guess from what I understand, Switzerland is a pretty rich country, so I don't know how much working their dogs do. But when you touch these dogs, they're pleasant to touch, but they're pretty soft. You know what I'm saying? Like I like to stroke this dog because he's squishy. You know what I'm saying? People like to hug them and love on them because they're a little bit on the squishy side. Look at George here. George, he's kind of squishy too, you know. Oh, these dogs like Annie, already at her age, she's kind of like dense and wiry feeling when you try to pet her, you know. So if you just had to, you know, like if I was just petting a dog for my own self-gratification, like I'd had a stressful day and I wanted a dog to pet, this one right here, he's going to be at the top of the list. Look, he's a very soft dog. He loves to be pet. He's a very good boy. He's just very pleasant to pet, you know. Those are the kind of things that you don't always think about when you're getting a dog. But liking the way the dog looks, liking the way the dog feels, you know, liking the size of the dog so he fits on your bed or he fits on your couch. I mean, those are all things that you have to think about, you know. I've been in the dog business a long time, and I used to be one of those guys that would tell you what you needed to do, tell you what you should do. But over the course of time, I just tried to help people like figure out what's gonna make them happy, and then lay out a series of possible steps to help them be happy. And it all starts with objective self-evaluation and picking the right dog breed. And sometimes picking the right dog breed is just hard because there's just not a lot of people that just tell the truth about dogs. Like, see how we've kind of lost Tucker? See if I can get him back. Come on! Here he goes. Very nice. Comes pretty fast. I give him a treat. But you're going to notice as we finish this walk, he's just going to start to disappear a little bit. And then, like, if I walk far enough, I'll end up walking a circle and finding him again. Come on. Very nice dogs. Oh, and there goes some deer. 1, 2, 3. I don't know if you can see them, cameraman. 2, 3, 4 deer right over the hill there. Hey, that is why you have to do a lot of early environmental socializations. One of the things with these Swissies, like if you get back to this droving aspect of their, their ancestry, like if they see a deer, now they ain't running far, but they are known to kind of dart off. So if you're at a park, especially on the East Coast now where there's lots and lots of deer, you can be like, there's deer in really fairly densely populated, semi-urban areas. And this kind of dog, if he sees one and it takes off running, about as soon as that flag comes up, like that old instinct will come in, they like to call it herding instinct, who knows, prey drive, chase drive, whatever, and they'll dart off. And they'll run about 70 or 80 yards. I mean, I don't ever have to worry about it here, but like if you live in an area where 70 yards is the difference between being in a park and being in a road, and you're going to get a Greater Swiss Mountain Dog, you better really get you a good stop command on point, And people always say, Stonnie, do you mean a recall? Like if the dog goes chase a deer, should I call him back to me? And I'm like, well, do the police say come here when they're arresting somebody, or do they say freeze? Okay, so always put your stop before you come, and you're gonna have a lot more success. Hey, dogs! There's Caleb. Caleb comes, checks in, and here's Tucker again. So, like, you'll notice sometimes I reach down here to give Tucker a treat, and like he's just so obsessed with doing stuff with his buddies, like he forgets. Once we get up here and get stationary, then like he'll start taking treats a lot again. But like where the English lab, the showbred labs, they're like training them with food is pretty consistent across your training sessions during the day. With the Swissies, they kind of get mouse and cookie-ish. You know, have you ever heard the story about the mouse and the cookie? Like you give a mouse a cookie and then he wants this and then he wants the other. Well, these guys are kind of the same way. They'll come out here and they'll get to smelling. And when they're smelling, they forget about like the treat work. And so sometimes doing positive reinforcement training with like a Greater Swiss Mountain Dog or a Bernese Mountain Dog or an Entlebucher can be a little bit frustrating because it works really, really well in your home and it doesn't really, really work well in a distracting environment, okay? So you just have to, you know, you have to learn a whole system that shows you how to address all those things. Always remember in dog training, guys, there's lots of ways to skin a cat, but you got to pick one and stick with it. Come on, dogs. Consistency ultimately is the key with, you know, maximizing the potential of your dog's natural traits and tendencies. And Tucker has got on one side of the creek and he's having trouble getting back. Come on, dude, you can do it. Come on. Come on, big boy. Watch him come up this hill kind of slow. Hey, come on. Oh my gosh, here he comes. He's a good comer, a very good boy, very nice dog. Now Sherlock's being good, so I'm gonna give him a treat. Caleb, he's all about treats. I'll give him a treat. Look at Oscar, he's not too interested in the treats right now. George likes treats, I'll give him a little treat. Okay, now we're coming up on the world famous brush pile challenge. I'll jump up here real quick and see if anybody will get up here with me. Oh my gosh, good dogs. All right, who do we have? Come on, dogs. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with my channel, a lot of you ask me about the brush pile challenge, and you say, well, Stonnie, isn't that dangerous? Well, if it was super dangerous, I probably wouldn't be doing it, but if it wasn't a little bit of danger, then it probably wouldn't be fun. So, look who piled right up here, Annie. 8-week-old field-bred Labrador Retriever. Oh my gosh, Oscar, one of my favorites, English Cocker. But look who's right up here with them. Oh, I can't hardly pick this big boy up. Tucker. Now the reason this big dog can get on this brush pile is because from the time he was little, I've been bringing him out here climbing this brush pile. And that kind of goes against the thinking with a lot of people that raise these big dogs. A lot of times you'll hear with the Greater Swiss Mountain Dogs, with the Bernese Mountain Dogs, with any of the Mastiffs, you want to restrict their exercise when they're young. Wait till their growth plates are closed. That's the worst information I've ever heard in my life, okay? That'd be like telling a little kid that they can't learn to play soccer or ride a bike or play football until they were 23 years old, okay? Well, any of y'all that's ever tried to pick up a sport later on in life, you know it's impossible. Exercise, guys, reveals problems. It doesn't cause problems. I mean, minus the, you know, occasional trauma like that you'll get when you're out adventuring, all this kind of stuff is great for a dog. Now, if you don't know how to do this kind of stuff, then don't do it. You got to hire somebody like me that does it on a regular basis to walk you through it. But when this dog is a year old, proprioception is going to be on point. All his connective tissue is going to be strong. His nervous system and his musculoskeletal system are going to be working in synergy, right? And it all comes from what we call toes to nose stimulation. And we start that as soon as the dogs get here. And don't let anybody tell you that restricting dogs from exercise is a good idea. See right here, that dog has to figure out a way to get down. Now I might help him. I might help him pick a line here. Watch. You see that? I can't even bring, when people want to bring me dogs that are 8, 9, 10 months old, a year old, I can't even bring them out to the brush pile challenge hardly ever because they just can't do it without like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of work, you know? Guys, there's no, like these windows, these socialization and physical development windows, like they close quickly. So you gotta push everything in that opening that you can as soon as you can. Very nice. Come on, dogs. Oh, Georgie got him a big stick. Georgie got a big stick. Again, talking about genetic tendencies, right? So look at George, kind of always carrying something around his mouth. Well, this is the kind of thing that gets George in trouble at home because like he's always carrying something around in his mouth. When you have a dog like George, you have a retriever. Remember, when you're breeding for specific qualities, sometimes like you get, like let's say you wanted 8 units of something. So you're trying to produce a litter of puppies that has uniform distribution of traits and tendencies, right? You don't get a uniform distribution. You get some that have very little of those traits and tendencies, and you get some that have a whole lot of those traits and tendencies, you know, kind of hyper-focused. And then somewhere in the middle, it's kind of a bell curve, you know. And George just happens to be one of those types of Labrador retrievers that when he was bred, like not only does he have that natural tendency to eat everything, I mean, he'll eat as much as you'll give him, but he also is extremely oral. And instead of like going through, let me reach down here. Instead of going through an oral stage, like this dog, or show him that dog there. See how this dog's chewing on that stick? He's just going through an oral stage right now. Now, if I get in the middle of that and try to take every stick away from him that he picks up, all that's gonna happen is he's gonna be like a drug dealer. And so like he picks something up, he sees me, I'll be like the police. I turn and I look, I go to catch him, he'll just swallow it. So you gotta be real careful with these Swiss Mountain Dogs. When you're taking them out, you have to let them explore a little bit during that oral stage. Otherwise, you're gonna turn them into drug dealers, crack dealers, and they're gonna be swallowing the crack every time they feel like they're gonna get in trouble, okay? And they'll do it. Like you'll see them pick something up, and they'll turn like this, and it'll be gone. And then you're off to the vet. Which brings us to another thing with the Swiss Mountain Dogs. One of the reasons that we kind of a little bit got away from them is there are some problems with them, right? Okay, like having them sometimes can be a little bit expensive. It can be a little bit disappointing. You know, a lot of the puppies get OCD. Hip dysplasia pops up some, but the real thing that's very disappointing to you is they bloat, right? So their stomach kind of flips over, and if you don't catch it quick, then they die. You know, and I've had it happen here at my kennel 2 or 3 times, and people love to give you these wives' tales about why it happens related to feeding and water and this, but it just happens, right? And so you got to be super on point. If you're going to get one of these greater Swiss Mountain Dogs, you can't do too much about their hips, you can't do too much about their elbows, other than make sure that they get out and engage in a wide variety of physically and mentally enhancing activities. But the bloat, maybe it's going to pop up, and if it pops up, you got like this much time to get to the vet, okay? And you have to have a vet that's familiar with it too, okay? You know, I mean, that's something else, because like, doesn't pop up all the time, and if you don't have the right vet, like we got a vet here in Central Kentucky, and you know, he's done so many of them. I mean, you know, he was just around Swissies a lot, and so like it was just every day. He's like eating cereal to him, you know. But maybe if you live in an area where there's not many Swiss Mountain Dogs, your vet might only read about it. Okay, you don't want to be taking a dog to get fixed for bloat if they've only read about it or done it in vet school, you know. So that's something that's super important. I've seen it happen, guys. It's hard to have a healthy Swiss Mountain Dog and then die, and then you got to explain to your children, you know, why the dog died, you know. And I mean, I've seen it happen enough times that, you know, like getting their stomach tacked, to me, that's not a bad idea. Okay, so now we're over here at my campfire area. So I'm gonna take just a little break and grab up some firewood, and we're going to build just a quick little fire. You might say, well, Stoney, why are you doing that? Well, a lot of the dogs that come here, you know, they end up going camping a lot and doing stuff like that, and I don't want their first exposure to being out off the leash, to being in environments where there's deer, to being in the water, or to being around a campfire. I don't want that to be when the owners are trying to have fun, right? Because like, I'm going to build a fire, but I'm not going to be really enjoying the fire. I mean, I'm going to like it, my daughter's going to like it, it's going to be fun, but I'm not like, it's not the family trip for me, right? So I'm going to really be paying attention to the dogs, and as I'm paying attention to the dogs, they're just getting used to the smells, right? And they're getting used to the proximity to the fire that's allowable or not allowable. Okay, so I'll get started on that right now. Okay, now, one of the first things that a dog has to learn is how to stay out of the way when you're processing firewood. Okay, this is awesome. It's called a silky nada, and what I use this for is taking the best kind of firewood is like oak, you know, and around here there's a lot of horse plank fences because of the horse industry, and so like we keep this around here to burn in our twig stoves and to start our fires when it's going to rain, okay, because this is going to, once we get it going, even if it starts raining on us, we'll be in pretty good shape, you know. Now, one of the things you'll see as I go to doing my firewood, the dogs will come up because the dogs are interested in whatever you're interested in. If you ever are like this is one of the things that frustrates people. You'll be doing your landscaping around your house, and then like you go inside to answer the phone, you come out and the dog's dug up all the landscaping you just planted. Well, what happens is the dog sees you doing something that's interesting, they want to kind of join in, you know. So when you're doing your campfire safety, make sure, like if you're doing any batoning or you're doing any fire prep or food prep, make sure you keep up with stuff. And believe it or not, probably what's about the most dangerous thing for me at a campsite is plastic bags. You know, like I don't allow people to come to my kennel with those little plastic bags. You know, people want to put food in plastic bags and put it in their pockets so they don't get grease on their pocket. But that falls out and those dogs snatch it up and swallow it, you know. And so at the campfire, people always putting all their stuff in plastic bags, and then the dogs swallow it. So no plastic bags, guys. Now once we get down to the part where it starts to get a little sketchy, then I start batoning my wood in a more traditional way. What are you doing, Annie? You a good baby. Be stealing my firewood. Oh no, 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 no. That's exactly what I was telling you I was waiting for. Right there. Right there. Come over and start stealing my firewood. And I mean, it's perfectly understandable why they would want to steal it, because, hey, listen, nerd, you're trying to steal my firewood. Because, like, yeah, I'm not fooling with them. When I'm not fooling with them, they're like children. They get a little bit bored, and they start getting into stuff to get your attention. We call that negative attention seeking. Okay, now we got us a good little bit of firewood started here. Watch out, Oscar. So we'll separate the firewood into sections, right? Okay, get back, dude. So we have little pieces leading to big pieces. Hey, Charlotte, come over here and help me build this fire. So now in my little pouch here, I've used my big chopper to chop up my wood to basic kindling size. But what do I have to start with, Charlotte? What's the rules on fire building? Pencil lead?
Pencil, finger,
thumb. Pencil lead, pencil, finger, thumb, right? Okay, so just to get started here, I'm gonna take this nice Mora and I'm just gonna like feather stick this just a little bit so that we have lots of surface area for our fire, okay? So I'm gonna kind of take this and I'm gonna just make some long pieces. You see those long pieces sticking up there? Mm-hmm. Okay, now what those long pieces will do, you have three components to fire. You have to have fuel, and you have to have oxygen, and you have to have spark. And so getting these little pieces going, okay, requires that we open up a lot of air channels, okay? And, there we go. Okay, now put our little pieces up here. There we go. You can see that the wind is kind of blowing our little pieces. Go back to building our little log cabin tower. And then, so we use this oak to get this started back here. And once we get it started, we can put on other kinds of wood because the oak burns really hot, and just all this, this softwood out here, it'll help burn. Isn't that cool? Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Here's some wood for the fire.
Yeah, that's fine. And we just pick whatever scraps we can. Like we, see somebody building something, we'll stop by. We'll get pallets, we'll get anything. We build so many fires that we're always looking for something to burn. It's also very interesting from a survival standpoint, like what'll burn and how long will it burn, how hot will it burn. So guys, when you go out and you build fires, don't just take your solo stove and your your fire starter from the grocery store, you know what I mean? Get out and experiment with some different kinds of woods, experiment with some different kinds of fire building apparatuses. Now cameraman, go on back over there and show them what all these dogs are doing while Charlotte and I are working on this fire. That Labrador puppy over there, 8 weeks old, is chewing on a stick. Notice I'm not freaking out about that, guys. People freak out a little bit too much about dogs chewing on sticks. Dogs have been chewing on sticks, since the first wolf took its first step. Okay, and then we got a lot of playing, a lot of goofing off. And kind of the big thing that I want you to think about here is like, we're just waiting for stuff to happen. You can see like Oscar came over here and he got a little close to the fire, and so I had to fuss at him. This Swissy, who's a little bit more naturally skeptical, kind of has come over here and he's looking at the fire. If he gets a little too close, then I can give him some feedback, tell him that's not acceptable. But for the most part, learning by doing, what I call bump training, is always going to be the best training, because the dog doesn't feel like I'm lecturing them or I'm like put them in a position where I'm getting in the way of their fun. The dog looks at what we're doing like they're going and hanging out with us, and we're going to do fun stuff and they're going to do fun stuff, and I'm really not going to get involved other than to play with them or have fun with them or keep them from doing something that's dangerous, destructive, or rude. And the dogs will pretty much buy right into that if you give them the chance. Don't they, Charlotte?
The log cabin is burning down.
Our log cabin is burning down, that's for sure. But it's putting out a lot of heat, and then once that good oak gets going, then we can put any kind of wood on there that we want. So you can start getting this kind of wood. And this is great for kids too, guys. Like when you're out training your dog, it should always be a 360-degree wind. So the kids should be learning stuff, and the dog should be learning stuff, and you should be learning stuff. Never stop learning. Yeah. So that's pencil lead size. So that's what we would normally use to start a fire. But it's also okay to put on a fire that's already going, because you know that it's going to go ahead and catch on fire. And then we can start expanding our little teepee out. So we go from a log cabin kind of to a teepee. So if you want to go over there and get some big sticks. Now back up over there, cameraman, and again show what the dogs are doing. While Charlotte and I, right there, show what Tucker's doing. While Charlotte and I are out here playing with sticks, that dog's over there playing with sticks. And I just got to keep an eye on him, because guys, there's a difference between a dog chewing a stick and kind of spitting out the pieces, and a dog ingesting a stick. And that's hard. Like if you've not been around a lot of dogs, it's hard to understand. If you feel like they're getting too much into the stick eating, quit. Do something else. Go over there and interrupt it. You see that? Look, when a dog's 16 weeks old, it doesn't take a lot. I mean, it's pretty easy to bully him, so I just went over there. He's doing something I don't like. I'm like, hey, go on. Knock that out, There you go. Okay. Now, here we go. Now we go to our teepee style. And since we have this oak base, then getting the rest of this wood to burn is going to be pretty easy. Go ahead and let me see those pieces there. You can put these scrap pieces up there if you want. Woo, it's getting hot. All right. Okay, guys, well, listen. My Swiss Mountain Dog video turned into a campfire video. And I know some of you guys might not be into camping, but I just wanted to make the point that from my perspective, like you saw on the Exercise of Small Challenges course, a 4-month-old Swissy can learn my vocabulary, learn my physical skill sets that I teach here at the kennel pretty well in that environment. They're social with other dogs. We've come out here and we've went on a hike, and he stayed with us pretty good. He came when we called him. He's he sticks around. Watch how he's looking at that fire. This is what I was telling you about them kind of being like, you know, cognizant of what goes on in the environment, and why I recommend them as a guard dog if you live in a, you know, a low crime area. They're big enough to be a deterrent, but they got big friendly personalities for the most part. So you don't have to deal with the liability of a dog that's really like looking to have conflict with evildoers, you know. They're just great family dogs from my perspective. I have no doubt that, like, if we stay out here till it gets dark, if somebody or something walks up in the dark, they're not going to catch me unawares, because that dog, even at 16 weeks old, is going to jump up, he's going to notice them, he's going to start going boo, 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 boo. Then I can take the steps appropriate to you know, defend myself or defend my family. Now, you live in a high crime environment, no, that dog's not for you, right? Okay, so that's why when you come here at night, I have big farm dogs that patrol the environment. You don't see them very much because they're super mean and they bite people, right? You know, they're under-socialized on purpose. They don't like anybody but me and my family. You know, they have a very distinct in-group, out-group preference. But the problem with my farm dogs is that I have maximized their deterrent value, but I have failed to minimize their liability. Okay, does that make sense? Right? They're high deterrent value. When you see them, they look mean. Guess what? That's because they are mean, right? Okay, so high crime area, big things at stake. Swissy is not a good dog for that. Low crime area where you're going to be mainly going to soccer practice and going to softball games, going to family reunions and stuff, but you still like to kind of have a dog that when you're out camping or your children are playing in the backyard is big enough to keep an eye on them and keep kind of mid-level evildoers at bay. Okay, I think it's a great dog. Okay, all right, so I hope that helps you make your decision as to whether or not a Greater Swiss Mountain Dog is right for you. I'll see you guys next week.